Afternoon. Thank you for your patience. We had a few small technical difficulties, so hence the small delay. Welcome at this webinar Brexit, full of relevant, really detailed content and expertise. We are joined actually by Mr. Tim Briercliffe from Oxfordshire in the United Kingdom, the Secretary General of AIPH, our partner in this webinar. Media partner is Floriculture International. My name is Joep Hendricks. I'm the director at World Horti Center, which is a unique location in the Netherlands where education, research, private sector companies, over 130, collaborate intensively on advancing the industry. We have around 35,000 guests per year physically here in the World Horti Center. This year, obviously, most of them, just like you today, in a digital fashion. The reach is fantastic. The content and expertise shared is valued to a great extent. So we're glad that you found us today as well. We hope to provide you with some new insights today about this topic that has almost advancing knowledge with every hour passing. Just a few hours ago, the EU president informed that he would expect a deal within a few hours. So we're waiting, hopefully, all. Tim, I think you're with us. I would like to present you as the moderator today, and please guide us through all the speakers this afternoon. I wish you best of luck and lots of valuable knowledge.
Well, thank you, Joep, and good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, depending where you are in the world. Good evening, maybe even. And so welcome to the second of our webinars on Brexit and the implications of Brexit for the industry. Today, we're focusing on the cut flower industry. And I'm really pleased that we have a great lineup of speakers for you today. We have speakers and also a panel discussion time. You have the opportunity to put forward questions. Please use the chat facility to do that, and we will collect those questions, and they will be given to me, and I will raise them as many as I can anyway with the panelists that we have towards the end. My name, yes, is Tim Briercliffe. I'm the Secretary General of AIPH, the International Association of Horticultural Producers. And our purpose is to be the world's champion for the power of plants. We have our members, our associations that represent the interests of growers of ornamentals, plants, flowers around the world. We also are the publishers of Floriculture International magazine, and we would encourage you to join with a free subscription to this magazine and enjoy the over 100,000 readers of the magazine around the world. So AIPH is we have a number of initiatives that, including the International Grower of the Year. We produce an annual statistical yearbook along with our colleagues in Unionfleur. We have initiatives on Green City promoting the importance of plants in the urban environment and in the indoor space. We have the role of approving international horticultural exhibitions, and we support growers in work on novelty protection, on sustainability, on plant health, and matters like this. But today we're really pleased to be able to bring to you, along with the World Horti Center, who we're delighted to be working with, this webinar. And we've got a great lineup of speakers for you. Now, Brexit, of course, every time you mention it, it provokes strong views, not just here in the UK, but across Europe and indeed across the world. And so today we're not going to discuss those views. We're going to go into the more of the real implications for business. What does Brexit mean for the sector? What do we need to do in the coming weeks as the 1st of January gets closer and closer? There are many points to consider whether or not there is a deal, and we've just heard that there may or may not still be a deal. We don't know yet as the time goes on. Matters that we need to consider: customs bureaucracy, phytosanitary certification, tariffs, delays, Northern Ireland, exchange rates, all of these kind of things. We have many experts with us today and practitioners from within the industry who will help us to answer the questions. We have with us today Eline van der Berg from Royal FloraHolland. We have Michell from Flamingo Holdings in the UK. We have Stefan Koopman from Rabobank. We have Augusto Solano from Asocolflores in Colombia, and we have Nigel Jenny from the Fresh Produce Consortium in the UK. So please join in our discussions today. Please add any questions you want as we go through, and we'll collect them up. We'll save all the questions till the end, and we'll move from one speaker to the next. But that's enough from me. Let's move straight into our first presentation, and our first presentation is from Eline van der Berg. And Eline is a program manager of the Holland Flour Alliance, which is a strategic alliance between Schiphol Cargo, KLM Cargo, and Royal FloraHolland. Eline is going to speak to us about the impact of Brexit on the market position of the Netherlands. Welcome, Eline. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tim, and hi again. I would like to say hi to everybody from the World Horti Center. Good afternoon and good morning to some of you. What I would like to present during my presentation is the economical impact, what we expect from Royal FloraHolland. So like Tim mentioned, I will do my presentation on behalf of Royal FloraHolland, the flour auction based in the Netherlands. And the impact analysis I would like to present to you, I would like to say to the international viewers that the impact analysis is made from the perspective of the Netherlands. Yeah, I'm working at the Public Affairs Department, and together with colleagues at Royal FloraHolland, we prepared impact analysis. Why did we do that? Several reasons, because for the Netherlands, the United Kingdom is a very important export market. Actually, after Germany, it's the second export market. The turnover, the export value in 2019 was 855 million euros. And what we noticed during this year that, yeah, obviously there was a lot of attention on the COVID situation during the first wave because of the lockdown measures in several countries. But also now at this moment, we're in the middle of the second wave. There again, and that's logical, there is a lot of focus on the corona situation again, new lockdown measures in several countries. But we realized that during this year, there was little attention yet for the Brexit. And we also realized that the Brexit is getting close. And actually at this moment, it's just 4 weeks, and then it's the 1st of January. And everybody was talking about, yeah, we know there will be extra costs involved and there will probably be delays and extra time. So we thought it would be a good idea to get more insight what will be the extra cost of the Brexit and what will be the extra time. So we that was the reason why to prepare the impact analysis. I want to make 2 disclaimers before I start presenting the analysis. Yeah, still a lot of uncertainties. So we have made some estimations about the impact. And also, of course, we calculated with estimate values. So if you've done already an impact analysis for yourself, for your own company, it might be that on some topics, your figures will vary with the analysis we have made. The approach of our analysis is that we used 4 building blocks: the commercial impact, operational, phytosanitary, and financial. And I will present them to you one by one. To start with the commercial impact, then it's good to realize that talking about the export from the Netherlands to the UK, that the division between cut flours and plants is about 75% are cut flours and the remaining 23% are plants. And why is that important, this division? Because the expected import duty on EU cut flowers is 8%, and for plants it's 0%. So this, the total impact of the import duty on the total export value will be about 5.8%. On non-EU cut flowers, it's expected that there will be no import duty on the cut flowers. So that's interesting because that will be a change in the current situation, that there will be a differentiation between cut flowers from the EU and from non-EU. Talking about the commercial impact, it's also important to stress that compared to the current situation, in the new situation, and a lot of documents needs to be prepared. The documents can be prepared once the shipment is ready. So it needs a far more strict preparation process, order process, and no last minute changes can be made anymore. So that's very important to realize, and that will also have impact in the relation between a grower and an exporter. To summarize the commercial impact, we've calculated, because of the import duty, that the commercial impact will be 5.8% on the export value. About the operational, let's say the logistics impact, we have used as a background information a KPMG report, which has been done in 2018. And in that report, they estimated that the costs for the custom formalities will be around 78 euros per shipment till 126 euros per shipment. Based on the amount of shipments, then the impact of these formalities will be 0.2% on the turnover. What I would like to emphasize as well, because we realized also by reading this report and also speaking with exporters, that there is a lot of focus on the export towards the UK, but less focus on the return flow. And that's something to realize as well, but because if you send returnable transport items like trolleys or buckets, you need to report them again to the EU or the Netherlands. And also for this real import, documentation and formalities are involved. So that's something to realize, not just the documentation, but of course, then again, also extra costs for this documentation, these formalities. If you don't have any experience with export, then you probably already have made a choice whether you're going to organize this yourself in your company, or otherwise to outsource these services to an expeditor. And if you choose to do that, then of course also for these services extra costs are involved. Talking about time, the delay, what we expect in the exporters process, that there is extra time needed for the preparation of the documents, also for the inspections. And we think that the expected delay will lie between 4 hours extra till 24 hours. Why this difference? What we know now is that before a shipment arrives at the UK, a pre-notification must be made. And it must be made 4 hours in advance. But on the other side, we've also spoken to some exporters and they said, well, we definitely need 1 day extra in our process. And 1 day extra keeping products on stock means additional costs like inventory costs, interest, storage space, and probably also loss of product. That's the delay for the exporter. On the other hand, we expect that also there will be delays at the border. How much? We don't know yet. But what we've seen already now today, that there is already kind of a chaos situation at the moment. Normally there are 6,000 truck transport movements between the UK and the European Union. And I read today that it's 50% more already this month. and now the average truck movements are 9,000. So that leads to more waiting time already now at this moment at the border. For delay, we summarize the impact approximately on 5%, which leads to the operational impact of 5.2%. Then the third building block. Before talking about the impact, we would like to emphasize that there probably might be an import restriction on high-risk products. And why is that? And probably you know that this year in April, an import restriction was already done by the UK government. Perhaps you remember the discussion about lavender plants, for instance. And these import restrictions had to be withdrawn by the UK because this year they were still part of the European Union and they couldn't impose this measure just from their side. But we expect, because they've introduced this restriction, it might be very well possible that that will going to happen next year. Then the three-stage model you have probably written about. So in 3 different stages, the import control will be introduced. First, from January on, the focus and inspection on high priority plants. From April on, the regulated plants, and from July on more regulated plants, and also the level of inspection will increase. What we know now is that at least plants will be submitted to phytosanitary inspection, and they are going to need a certificate. But quite recently, we also realized that probably also from the 1st of April, cut flowers will need a phytosanitary certificate. I don't have any more clear information about that, but that means that that is also going to have a huge impact because, as you remember in my presentation, I mentioned that 75% of the export consists of cut flowers. Then talking about the costs for phytosanitary inspection, our calculation is again also for this part based on the KPMG report. And in the KPMG report, they have spoken about a variation between 102 euros until 190 euros per shipment. And this cost we have validated also with some exporters, and they told us that that it's more likely that the cost will be 100 euros per shipment, 190 euros per shipment, or perhaps even more. So that is the reason why we calculated in our calculation with 190 euros per shipment, which leads to an impact of 0.4%. The fourth building block, what we see is that at the end of this year and during this year that as well the disposable income as well the customer expenses will be negative. It is forecasted that the recovery trend will happen, but will probably be on the same level just in 2024. So that needs some time. And on the expectations, what we have is that the rate of the British pound will decline in relation to the euro, at least, probably in the beginning of the Brexit. So we calculated in our calculation with a currency risk of -4% and also a decrease of the disposable income of also -4%, which leads to a financial impact of -8%. To summarize what I have just explained in this overview, is that you see that when it comes to documentation, so the documentation for the phytosanitary certificate and the customs declaration, in total that will be around 0.6 extra costs, what you have to calculate. Import duty, it says here the total figure of 5.8, but please note that for cut flowers, the 8% is expected, and for plants 0%. So that's why this is a different figure. For delay 5%, and then the financial impact, which leads to our estimation that it might well be possible that on one hand, the flowers will become more expensive because there are more costs in the supply chain, and on the other hand, that also the demand for flowers from the UK will decrease from the EU, I must say. So that's quite a huge impact. Yeah, for the right part in your screen, it's still uncertain to what extent. So it might vary somewhere between 10, perhaps 20%, but this is what is quite well expected. The possible consequences, what we expect, is that for the Dutch growers, there will especially be impact on flowers which are exported to the UK in a big volume, like chrysanthemums, lilies, and gerberas. There probably will have impact on demand and also on the price setting. For buyers, we expect there will be impact on the additional costs, like I just mentioned, and also on decrease on demand. For Royal FloraHolland, the flower auction, it might well have some impact on our turnover. And what we expect as well, because there is a division in the future between the import duty on non-EU flowers and EU flowers, we expect there might be a shift as well of non-EU cut flowers sailed and transported directly to the UK. I realize it's a quick, broad overview, but I hope you heard some topics which will points out what are more or less the consequences will be, and also for your country, for your company, what to take into account. Thank you very much.
Eline, thank you very much for excellent presentation, and it's good to see that detailed impact analysis. It still shows a wide range of outcomes that could happen, anything from up to 20% right down to a lot less. So there's still a lot of questions to be answered in this, like we can see. But thank you for that, and we look forward to asking some more questions to you later on in the panel. And if you have any questions for Eline, please put them into the chat and we will pick them up there. And now we're going to move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Ian Michell. He is the Group Technical and Procurement Director for Flamingo Group International Limited, a company that has a turnover of £550 million in cut flowers, produce and plants. Ian's been involved with the Flamingo Group for 23 years, starting off in a homegrown branch in Kenya, growing produce and cut flowers for export markets. More recently, he's been the technical director role and developed a preferred partner program for their suppliers, and has been involved in managing the supply of flowers to UK retailers. So, Ian, we give you a warm welcome, and Ian today is going to talk to us about how Brexit could change the supply of flowers to the UK. Over to you, Ian. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon to everybody, and good afternoon in the UK. If you're in the UK, it's a very snowy UK actually today, which is the first snowfall we've seen. I'm just going to quickly run through a little bit about where we see the market at the moment going in the UK and where we see it moving forward now with Brexit coming forward. But I thought I'd just give you a quick overview of actually where the impact of the Flamingo Group now. We have been growing flowers for many years, and more recently we partnered up with and been part of a bigger, wider group, which is the Flamingo Horticulture and AfriFlora network, which looks after our supply base from predominantly Kenya, but obviously with Ethiopia being a main supply channel into the European network as well. We're directly responsible for AfriFlora in Holland, Flamingo Flowers BV in Holland, and Omniflora in Germany. They're our European colleagues who basically market all of our product into Europe. Flamingo Flowers BV is a procurement arm for our business as well, within buying in from the Dutch market on the auction, and also direct supplies from the growers in Holland. So they've been working obviously very closely at the moment with the situation with Brexit, of how we actually work with our growers, supplying our sites in the UK. We have four sites in the UK, predominantly for flowers and plants, 3 flower sites, 1 plant site, and we source from all around the world. So currently we're sourcing and growing about 1.2 billion roses per year ourselves, coming from Ethiopia and Kenya. On the map there, you'll see a number of countries that are basically third-party sources for flowers and produce, and we obviously source a predominant amount of product from different areas that are coming through to our from our partner programs. We currently pack about 1.2 million bouquets per week, and that basically packed at source in our farms and our sites in the UK. And obviously, at the moment, we do have a huge amount of fair trade product. Just to give you a bit of background information, we're the largest fair trade grower in the world now of roses from our Ethiopian and our flower sites. If we move on to where we are with what's happening with, and I'll be quite quick with some of this stuff. The retailers are working on the UK market at the moment, working on very much the assumption supply will still come from the current sources. We are seeing that actually over time, this position has been moving around because obviously tariff programs have been changing. And when the UK GT tariff came into play, a number of countries we dealt with still had tariff actions in place. As you mentioned, and my previous speaker mentioned that obviously the tariff duty set for Holland and European supplies will be set at 8% coming into the UK. And the more direct supply channels now that we have, which is obviously including Kenya and Colombia and other areas of producing flowers, now have come to an agreement with the UK base and the UK retail supply chain. So the duty level has dropped back off that from where it originally was placed at an 8% level as well, and some a little bit higher. We're now seeing that as a 0% duty charge. That obviously disadvantages the situation we are with European supply because of the fact, obviously, as my friend mentioned earlier on, that we are seeing that chrysanthemums, lilies, geminis, those sort of products coming from Europe will still be commanding that duty plan. What do we think will happen in that? We imagine, I expect there'll be a reduction in supply from that program to impact or reduce the impact of the price bracket in there. So maybe see a reduction in stems or a reduction in volume in bouquets or in production units for UK retail. The other one you mentioned earlier on, we are very worried that supply chain challenges are going to bring delays. We see delays coming through already in the supply chain. We'll be pushing to move a lot more stock to hold in the UK. And now that will obviously put some pressures on the supply chain, but also more importantly on the product life. The inspection requirements we know is going to increase costs. We've looked at the increased cost impact of it. It is going to be quite challenging when the phytosanitary documentation control comes in place on cut flowers on the 1st of April. We will get a learning platform, I guess, from where we see the plant situation arising at the moment, where that actually starts from the 1st of January. But we'll obviously have to watch that very closely because that will have an impact on the total cost of goods sold. The other one that's actually really causing some challenges at the moment with Brexit, and actually obviously the marketplace changes in terms of COVID. COVID-19 has really seen a dramatic change in customer behaviour, not only from where we saw it in March, when the whole retail sector did have a complete shutdown in lockdown 1 due to supply chain challenges going through the retail network, and also some areas actually ceasing the supply of non-essential goods. Then at the moment, the marketplace with direct mail volumes and other areas moving up quite considerably as people do more home shopping is really having an impact as well on other ancillary items like packaging supply and options coming through with cardboard. Cardboard now in high demand periods like now is always been quite tricky. It's even more exacerbated as we look at it today. Areas like Amazon and the other direct mail supplier options or direct to customer options are really, really putting a pressure on that position. So that's just a bit of a watch out. We see that market changing. I mentioned direct mail volumes are really high. That is driving the real agenda at the moment in terms of what's happening within the marketplace. And as we see that go forward, that to me is going to be a step change in the marketplace for the future. The other one that we haven't mentioned really, but obviously the UK does have a direct correlation of throughput of product into the UK and then onward into Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. This is going to have a real challenge in the future because of the onward transit issues of plant passporting on plants, first of all. And I'm sure Nigel will come on to this a bit later on in terms of phytosanitary requirements, but also as well that actually the commercial impact of doing some of these items direct to market is going to be a challenge because you cannot send a phytosanitary documentation with that cost to an individual person in their house. It just doesn't make it viable. So Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland for direct mail will be a challenge for the UK people to supply that product going forward. I just thought I'd literally pick it out in terms of, I know maybe Nigel may cover off some of this later, so I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on this, but it just to provoke a little bit of thought and a little bit of challenge in terms of where we are. Obviously, we're going to see UK GT tariffs come into EU countries, and we mentioned that. And obviously, rest of the world countries, shall we say, have now agreements to the minimised impact. Obviously, the duty from Europe will actually impact heavily the Dutch supply, in terms of actually that supply channel. But there also will be opportunities for other direct supply channels coming into the UK, and I think they'll be seeing them increased. That will mean that UK destination flights, which currently doesn't have sufficient capacity on direct routes, could get pressurised, and you may see more expansion of freight actually into some areas, into other parts of Europe. So you may see more direct flights going into Southern Ireland, for example, as people look for other routing options to hit European destinations. What we do know, more expensive freight is going into UK than continental Europe, so that will be subject to offsetting some of the 8% duty charge that we see coming across. Just to pick up on plant health, we mentioned it a little bit more. Obviously, we'll get, today's not really about plants, but obviously flowers and controlled flowers, they still will remain in such in the UK process. Roses from around the world in certain places certainly still have false codling moth control, and that still remains inspections into that area. Whether that comes into Europe and then comes back out into UK, how that will be managed in terms of phytosanitary management is still yet to be really discovered, and also we'll see how that pans out over the future. We mentioned plant health inspections for re-export. That's really going to impact the volume of product coming through the UK into those areas. So there will be an opportunity for European markets to supply Europe or North or Southern Ireland directly. And I think the other one would basically for growers in Holland and growers in other parts of Europe, then phytosanitary inspections and phytosanitary control, or a consolidated approach, will be the only way forward to make it cost effective to get product into the UK. Certainly when we see the flower phytosanitary requirements come into place, then definitely consolidation centres will be very much the buzzword, I think. And that will be something we'll have to look at certainly from the 1st of April going forward. Transport-wise and logistics EU to UK, that is already pressured. People are looking for other options, and obviously we will have a 4-hour window for the port of entry for actually people to actually notify inspectors to actually meet some of the demanding issues or some of the high-risk products on arrival, which again will be a 4-hour window to wait for the inspector. That probably could be a bit challenged, but there's an awful lot of inspectors being re-recruited now at border control points, so we can actually see that come through. Consolidation loads of trailers and trailer units coming from to be dropped off rather than having drivers coming across. These will have to be pre-booked in the future, we understand it, and there'll be pre-bookings on the tunnel as well. So that again will put into some areas of delays. The other one, basically, we will be having product coming through the UK. We'll have PODs as well. So we'll be putting our position forward for Flamingo to have point of destination areas, so we can actually then monitor product coming through direct to us with inspectors. And the other one really was, I was just picking up on the plant health, really just to put it out into different area that actually direct mail will be affected. And also as well, you'll see no flowers and plants can be re-exported to the EU without the certification and plant passporting process. This will delay things, and also this will have an impact on product. And also, well, the inspection costs are quite very financially consuming at a certain rate for an inspector to come and inspect those plants or the flowers in the future. So that's really just a bit of an overview of where we're seeing the marketplace in the UK. Volume seems to be still driving a very good way, but we obviously have to now balance up some of the value costs that we're going to have in this marketplace before we actually see it going into the full Brexit impact. Thank you very much indeed for your time, and I look forward to taking questions later.
Ian, thank you very much for your presentation. Really helpful insight into the things that you're facing as a business and the things that you are having to look into. Please stay around along with the other speakers for the panel session, and we will have some more questions for you there. So thanks again very much, Ian. We're going to move on now to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Stefan Koopman from Rabobank. He is a senior market economist at Rabobank. He's responsible for analysing developments in the interest and currency markets and communicating the Rabobank expectations to Dutch target groups. He's a real focus on Brexit and the Bank of England, and he writes articles and commentary on anything that moves the financial markets. And so we're very pleased that he's going to speak to us today about the economics of trading with the UK post-Brexit. Over to you, Stefan. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you, Tim. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is indeed Stefan Koopman, and I work as an economist at Rabobank, which is a Dutch-based bank that is mostly active in the food and agri market. In the next 10 minutes or so, I would like to give a brief talk on the latest developments in the UK economy, which actually faces two shocks at the same time. I will try to shed some light on how this could affect the currency markets, and then I will try to explain how this all broadly affect the trade of the goods between the EU and the UK. As an economist working in these financial markets and alongside currency and bond traders, my job is not to have a very detailed understanding on all the specific rules and regulations that will change just because of Brexit, even though I perfectly understand that some of these details can be extremely important for businesses such as yours. But instead, what our clients expect from me and from us is to see whether we can come up with some strategic views on how we see the UK economy developing in 1 or 2 or even 5 years ahead. So around this time last year, right after the withdrawal agreement was signed, I had to formulate a new outlook for this year. Clients ask me, is this going to be a really hard Brexit, or is it going to be a so-called Brexit in a name only? Well, if you look at Brexit only from an economic perspective, as economists tend to do, you would be very inclined to expect this to be a very soft Brexit. After all, that's what everyone thinks that's the most rational thing to do. But what these type of analysis typically misses is that over the past 2 or 3 years, the entire concept of Brexit has been defined in a much harder way. Boris Johnson has actually been quite straightforward on this. Brexit without taking any control back of the UK's rules and regulations has no real purpose. And the EU has also been very clear in turn that the British push for more sovereignty has a very high price. The UK will lose its direct access to the European markets, and the UK's trade relations will become much more complicated and costly than before. And this will be the case regardless of whether a deal is concluded this weekend perhaps, or at some point later this month. And yeah, obviously time is running in very short supply here, but the expectation in financial markets right now is that we may see the outlines of a deal as soon as this weekend, but also that Brexit certainly won't be finished on January the 1st. So there is no real endpoint or steady state in this new EU-UK relationship, regardless of whether we see a deal or not. So what would then be the impact of Brexit? Well, that will be very complicated to measure because we're in the midst of a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, and we have recently rerun our numbers again, and we now expect that the British economy will contract by 11.5% this year. You can see that in the table on the right side of your screen. And this is the steepest decline in more than 300 years. And we also think that there will be a fairly slow recovery in the next 2 years. And we are, in that sense, a little bit more pessimistic than the official forecasters for the UK economy, such as the Bank of England or the OBR. So if there is a deal, we expect GDP growth to come in at 3.9% in 2021 and 5.4% in 2022. And if we don't get a deal, then we think that the economy will grow 0.9% next year and 3.5% in 2022. So even though we do forecast economic growth in both these scenarios, we think that the recovery will always be incomplete. And this is because the economy faces what economists tend to call an unholy trinity of risks. And this is the coronavirus, these are the practical realities of Brexit, and it is the expected rise in UK unemployment. You can also see this on the chart on the left. GDP dropped around 25% this spring when the economy shut down from the middle of March. And that was, of course, because of the first wave of COVID. And there has been a recovery in the economy over the course of the summer, but this was certainly not enough to compensate for all the losses that we had in the early months of the spring. So even before the November lockdown, GDP was still more than 9% below its peak. So that's quite a big gap there. And the second dip that we are now seeing is expected to be much smaller, as several sectors such as manufacturing or construction are still able to operate, and that wasn't the case during the spring. But at the same time, we all know that most of the UK's retail has been shut in November. So we still think that the economy could contract around 3% in this quarter and then slowly recover from January onwards if the economy is able to fully reopen because of the vaccines. So the pandemic and Brexit together is a very risky combination in our view, but we don't expect that Brexit itself would lead to yet another recession in 2021. And this is, of course, based on the assumption that there will be a deal. However, Brexit will have some long-term implications, and you can also see this on the chart on the left. We expect that it will take quite a while before GDP returns to its pre-pandemic level. That's the dotted line in this chart. We currently forecast that this will happen in around 3 years, and that it takes much longer if there is no deal, and that's the light blue line in this chart. So over time, if there is no deal, we believe that quite a wide gap can open up in the economy. And this could be as large as £2,600 per person per year in 2030. So that's quite a steep drop in GDP. So why is that? Even though the immediate impact of Brexit is overshadowed by the virus, there's quite a clear consensus among economists that Brexit will have a negative effect on the UK's potential rate of economic growth. And you could see this rate of growth as the rate of growth that the UK typically achieves in a very normal business as usual kind of year. And this slide here is mostly for your reference, so I don't want to go into all the details, but there's quite a simple rule of thumb here. So the bigger the economic distance between the EU and the UK, the bigger the economic consequences are for the UK. And this is simply because the UK relies more on its trade with the EU than the other way around. And we've also done some studies into this potential growth rate and found that it would be a bit below 2% per year if there was no Brexit, around 1.5% per year if there will be a Brexit with a deal, and around 1% per year if there will be no trade deal at all. And that this may sound like a small beer, but it does add up to quite large numbers over time if you compound these. So eventually, the impact of Brexit would be larger than the impact of the virus, even as the virus caused quite a steep recession, and Brexit probably won't. So what about the currency? Well, the good news here, in our view, is that Brexit has already been reflected in the currency since it plunged in 2016. Since then, sterling has been trading mostly sideways against the euro, with a natural ebb and flow that you typically see in these kind of markets. So this implies that if the UK and the EU do strike a deal in the next few days or weeks, we don't expect to see another sharp depreciation just because of the realities of Brexit. That said, even though the political risk will decline if there is a deal, we don't think that the pound will appreciate much either. The economic uncertainty remains quite large, this unholy trinity of risks, and the UK will be structurally less attractive for foreign capital than it was before Brexit. So our central forecast is that the euro sterling exchange rate would move from 89 cents as it is trading right now to around 87 cents over the course of 2021. And you can see that in the orange line in this chart. This will, of course, be entirely different if there is no deal. The financial markets have been fairly optimistic on these Brexit negotiations. So if it still breaks down, the traders will try to sell the pound and buy back dollars or euros. So the risk of a very sharp depreciation is, however, less pronounced than it was in 2019, when there was a lot of drama between deal or no deal, and there was a very wide range of possible outcomes, because even no Brexit at all was still a realistic possibility back then. So we will see a move towards 93 cents, perhaps 94 cents, if there was no deal being concluded, if there is no deal being concluded in the next few days or weeks. And you can see that in the light blue line. Well, there's also a dotted line in this chart, and this is the worst case scenario where all the risks that we currently see in the UK economy materialize. Think of a no deal Brexit, think of vaccines that are still delayed or ineffective, think of new lockdowns, a sharper rise in unemployment, and perhaps even negative interest rates from the central bank. In such a scenario, the pound could move towards an exchange rate of 1 against the euro. And obviously this would make UK imports of EU goods very expensive, also because we are likely to see in such a scenario that there will also be tariffs that would average around 8%. So then you have a very steep increase in your costs. Well, finally, how would this all affect trade between the EU and the UK? Well, regardless of whether a deal is struck, the cost of trade will rise because of the wide variety of non-tariff barriers that we are going to see. Eline has told you already about this in a lot more detail. And we estimate that these non-tariff barriers would have an equivalent tariff value of around 5 to 10%, which is broadly the same as the average tariff under no deal. So that would suggest that the deal that we are going to see is somewhere a halfway house between no deal and no Brexit at all. Then we have an expected rise in unemployment. And the UK government has been very generous with its furlough scheme, but this scheme is expected to stop in March. And the official forecast from the OBR is that unemployment will rise to 7.5% in the summer of next year, and it is currently 5%. And we think that it could even be a little bit higher than this, unless the government extends this furlough scheme once more, and that is a possibility. So what this would mean if they don't do that is that the income and the confidence of UK consumers will remain under pressure, even as the economy starts to recover from the pandemic. And we forecast that total consumer spending on goods next year could drop 2 or 3% relative to what we've seen during this summer, so after the first lockdowns, and that some of this spending will shift back to services. And if you then take the exchange rate, this could be, in our view at least, a slightly positive factor of around 2%. So here I disagree a bit with Eline. But this is again based on the premise of a deal. Otherwise, we would see a depreciation of around 4%. So if you add all these factors together, and you also have to make some assumptions on the price elasticities of your product. These elasticities are the sensitivity of your sales volumes to a 1% change in the price, in the selling price of your goods, or a 1% change in the income of the UK consumer, or a 1% change in the relative price to other goods that don't need to be imported. And we all know that these elasticities are typically higher for luxury goods, which are nice to have, and they're higher for luxury goods than they are for the basic goods or the necessities, which are need to have. So if you combine these elasticities with the expected increase in prices, we calculate that the expected drop in trade volumes from the EU to the UK is around 5% for basic products to around 15% for luxury products. And yeah, our view is that cut flowers risk to be on the upper end of this distribution. So that would be quite a steep reduction in volume. And with this, I'd like to hand over my virtual mic to Tim. Thank you very much for your time.
Stefan, thank you very much once again for excellent presentation and a great insight into the bank's predictions of what's going to happen and under the different scenarios. So if anyone has any questions for Stefan, please put them in the chat. We will collect them and ask them later on. So thank you very much again for your presentation. We're going to welcome now to join us Mr. Augusto Solano. Augusto is the Executive President of the Association of Colombian flower exporters, Asocolflores. Welcome, Augusto. It's coming to us today from Bogota, so it's morning to you in Bogota. In his role, he's responsible for leading the process of making Colombia's flower industry more competitive, with a focus on sustainable development and social responsibility. Asocolflores started in 1973 to promote the flower sector internationally and develop Colombian floriculture. So we give a warm welcome to Augusto. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to do this by doing a bit of an interview. So I'm going to ask some questions of Augusto, and Augusto, please do answer and branch out on the topics however much you feel. But welcome. Do you want to start at all by telling us anything about Asocolflores that I haven't mentioned already?
Thank you, team. Thank you to World Horti Fair, Jeff Hendricks, and to you and all the colleagues here. Well, as you said, Asocolflores has been from 1973 working for the flower industry in Colombia. We are now the second world exporter of flowers and by far the first supplier of flowers to the United States. We send our flowers to 100 destinations in 100 countries, and well, we've been very much focused on sustainable floriculture. So I'm happy to be here, and congratulations for bringing this subject that is important not only for the UK or for the European Union, but for the whole world, the supply chain of flowers.
Thank you. I wonder if you could tell us what is the value of flowers Colombia sells into the UK market?
Well, I think it's around 60 million dollars. We measure our exports mainly in dollars. Around that, this year has dropped by about 15% because of the COVID. And it has been an important market for us. As I told you, we mainly supply 80% of our flowers go to the United States. And but the UK has been our second market many times, several times. And it's important. We have a lot of trust, and we put a lot of effort in selling our flowers to the UK. We've done in the past several promotion campaigns, and this is a market we care much about.
Okay, is it possible to say what proportion of the flowers that come into the UK go via another EU country, like the Netherlands, for example?
I think it's difficult, but it does. It does. The point is that the flower industry is a very integrated supply chain. So you cannot say that you can handle it independently, but it's all interconnected. I think part of that is in these $60 million. However, I think part is not there, and it's something we can lose, and we worry about that, even though we can have a direct trade agreement with the UK.
Okay. So what do you see then as the main, from your perspective, what are the main implications of Brexit for the flower industry?
Well, even though it's not our largest market for the whole industry, I think it's very important. And being a board member of Union Flores, I've been involved somehow in this, because Union Flores, which is the floral organization that works on trade, has been working on this since 2016, with the whole thing started, precisely because it pointed out that the UK is highly dependent on imports, on floral imports. And also the Brexit is going to have a huge impact on the global economy somehow. But I think in the floral industry has a very heavy weight. It has a heavy weight because UK has been one of the 3 largest importers of flowers in the world. At some point, it was the largest importer on the world. The culture in Britain about gardening, flowers, plants, and everything is difficult to find in other countries. So this is a key country, but the specific weight for flowers is really important about the supply chain. On the other hand, is the type of product. Our product is very perishable. It's very delicate. It's not like other products that can have delays and waits. I think the three speakers that were ahead of me, from representatives from Royal FloraHolland, Flamingo, and Rabobank, have given very complete explanations, and it's very difficult to add to what they have said. But the integrated nature of the supply flower supply chain has a lot to do with this, and it's important to guarantee duty-free access for flowers everywhere. That has been our main concern, and that's what we've been working from Union First, which is right in Brussels, the hotspot for this kind of thing. So far, we have, as we've seen, access to the market and duties is one thing, but that's not all. So I think Kenya has already in place, and Ecuador, they have in place trade agreements, and Colombia also. We also got approval last month from our parliament, and now it has to go for signature for the president and then to the Constitutional Court. I think that the toughest part was the parliament, because during COVID, protectionism has arisen again. And it wasn't about flowers, but this deal between Colombia and UK has a lot of things: investments, mining, oil, and some other products. And there were a lot of enemies about this, so it wasn't easy, but finally we got through this. And then at this point, we have the main suppliers to the UK, Kenya, Ecuador, and Colombia, maybe, but the one that is missing is the EU. Hopefully, and from what I've seen, I think we're gonna get it. However, that's not all, and it's gonna be more costly. There's gonna be more costly for the people in the UK. They're gonna be more unemployment, so it's not good for the industry. And even if you don't have a direct impact, somehow this is all interconnected, and this disruption is going to have an effect. So we have to work together to see how we can mitigate the effects of these big, huge change in trade.
Thank you. Do you expect to see more of your sales going directly to the UK from Colombia rather than via the Netherlands, for example?
Only, I would say that only if there is not a deal between the EU and the UK soon, but that's not the best option. We'll rather have it the other way. We'll like business as usual, because for us, you know, one thing that has been affected here with this pandemic is logistics. Transportation is much more limited. It's not flexible. So it's not so easy to make changes. So if we have to do them, we'll do it. We'll find a way. It's going to be maybe more costly and not quick enough. So only if that doesn't happen, the deal doesn't happen with the EU, of course, our trade will go more directly. But still, we think the best thing is to have things as close as they have been in the past, especially during this pandemic that is going to last some time.
Okay, so your feeling from Colombia is that business as usual is your preferred option, and but I wonder if you got businesses in Colombia in the flower industry that are looking at this as a new opportunity to develop a route to market? For example, in the event of a no deal and tariffs affecting flowers from EU, is this new opportunities that are being seen from Colombia, or do you still see that the additional costs and the difficulties of logistics will make that difficult to take advantage of?
Tim, our growers, some of our growers that supply that market may see some opportunities, but I think that the disadvantages offset those opportunities. It's going to be more costly. There are going to be problems in purchasing power and all that. So yes, people will try to take advantage of some things, but they will be offset somehow by the increased cost of the whole process, the phytosanitary thing, the delays, and everything. So yes, we will, but I think they will be offset by these obstacles.
Okay, well, thank you. That's been a really helpful discussion with you on your perception of the trade from as a third country supplier from outside of the EU. If anyone has any more questions for Augusto, please put them into the chat, and I will put them to him during the panel session that we have later on. But thanks very much for sharing your thoughts on Brexit today, and we really appreciate you taking the time for that. Thank you. Please stay with us for the panel later, and many thanks.
Thank you, Tim.
We're now going to move on to our final speaker before we have the panel. The final speaker is Mr. Nigel Jenny. Nigel is the CEO, the Chief Executive of the Fresh Produce Consortium within the UK. He heads up that team, providing growth and increasing the membership of that and representing the UK fresh produce industry. Nigel is also an executive director of Freshfel, which is the EU trade association for fresh produce based in Brussels, and the International Federation of Produce Standards. He has a long experience within the sector and has been very active and involved in the issues surrounding Brexit for flowers and also the whole of the fresh produce industry. So we're very pleased to have Nigel with us today, and we pass over to you now, Nigel. Thank you very much.
Tim, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be part of this discussion today. A few thoughts from myself, really, is that I note the concerns of the previous speakers regarding the potential impact on sterling and the additional operational and administrative costs, which are all likely to be substantial in all aspects of the produce sector trading with the EU. However, I would like to just walk with a little bit of optimism and just hope that challenge brings opportunity to a range of businesses. So briefly, in terms of the Fresh Produce Consortium, we are the trade association for the fruit and vegetable, flower and plants industry in the UK, and many of our members are worldwide organisations. In terms of Brexit, we have had, I wouldn't say always enjoyable, but extensive debates and exhaustive discussions with the UK government, and endeavoured to encourage the adoption of an effective but hopefully minimal approach in terms of impact on the industry in terms of the new processes and regulations. However, our politicians have taken a different mindset, shall we say. I think it's important just to remind ourselves that from a UK as a nation, we import 65% of all of our fruit and vegetables and around 90% of all of our flowers and plants. So we are heavily reliant as a fantastic global trading partner, sourcing from around the world. As an organisation, we have provided extensive and regular updates to members, and we also offer a one-stop shop comprehensive guide to all aspects of managing that import and export process in terms of both customs, tariffs, phytosanitary, marketing standards, and much, much more. So, with our colleagues on the chat today from our colleagues from the EU, I'd really ask you this question: do you feel that you're prepared whilst, as we all know, in a very snowy UK today, trade negotiations are ongoing, and let's hope there is some level of agreement in the coming days, if not today perhaps. However, there's a very clear message from the UK government that it wants to secure its sovereignty for the future, and at the same time, perhaps in an aggressive manner, is suggesting we're ready for Brexit, but we're not sure Europe is. I think we need to reflect and remind ourselves that a business as usual approach is not an option. Whatever is agreed with the UK, we will not be part of the single market or the customs union. So fundamental change, regardless of what may be agreed in the next few days, is going to happen. For example, border management to support both European exports and UK imports is a reality. As we've already heard, that brings cost, complexity, and potential delay. From a UK border point of view, let's just understand a little bit further about what the UK government is suggesting about how its border will be managed in the near future with Europe. Effective, there are 3 key dates that you need to put in your diary, really. One is the 1st of January, one is the 1st of April, and the next is the 1st of July. 1st of January is the key date for a combination of things, but particularly for those businesses that trade in plants with the UK. Additional regulations will come into place on that day, and in essence, for high priority plants, which is most plants in reality, you will require a phytosanitary certificate to export to the UK. 1st of April, in essence, that then encompasses a whole new group of products, which includes regulated products, which includes cut flowers and a range of fresh fruit and vegetables. At that 1st of April date, you will be required to provide documentary information, which is the requirement of a phytosanitary certificate, and present that information through the new UK government IT systems. 1st of July brings the position when the UK has built a number of new border or near border inspection facilities, physical inspections may take place on those goods as they arrive from Europe. So briefly, remember from the 1st of January, you will have to manage your customs import processes and your export processes. But from a UK perspective, you are allowed a period of time. If you wish to defer those up till the 1st of July, you are able to do so. But you do need to have the documentary evidence before the 1st of July to then manage those individual declarations. I think the biggest challenge that we may well face is from a plant health point of view. As I mentioned a little while ago, is Europe ready? When you evaluate, as I've already suggested, the substantial trade between Europe and the UK, our estimates suggest that there are around 2.5 million consignments which are likely to require phytosanitary certificates come next year. And that is for a combination of plants, cut flowers, and fruit and vegetables. So it's a substantial change in terms of delivering documentary and official evidence. So from that point of view, my challenge would be, wherever you're based in Europe, perhaps, do you have the necessary official capacity, physical point of view, from the 1st of April and before for certain products? Documentary checks of that information will occur, but from the 1st of January for plants and from the 1st of July for the other categories, physical official inspections may take place at a combination of destinations. The levels of those inspections are yet to be publicly announced, but I hope through the encouragement and pressure of FBC that those levels of inspections will be as low as practically possible. I think we should also reflect on how you choose to manage your logistics between Europe and the UK as well. Given that we've talked about a range of products now requiring a phytosanitary certificate, a range of goods at higher or lower risk from a phytosanitary and biosecurity point of view, you need to think carefully about when you're using groupage, which I accept is essential for our industry. You ensure that your fellow users of those vehicles have got the right documentation. Otherwise, your consignment could well be stopped while you're waiting for somebody else's goods to be inspected, and just reflect on the goods that are, in inverted commas, a higher risk that may require a greater level of physical official inspection in the UK that may allow or may encourage delays of you or your customers receiving those goods in the UK. I think, again, what's also important, and I think it was raised by a colleague a few minutes ago, it isn't just about arriving in the UK, it's getting those vehicles and that packaging, whatever it may be, back to Europe as well. So it is something that does need to be considered and reflected on. In terms of non-European countries, so in the rest of the world, as you're aware, my friend a few minutes ago talked about new agreements with the UK. The UK government has been for some time renegotiating direct agreements with a range of non-European countries. In essence, the official term is continuity agreements. A number of those have been signed and agreed, but I would encourage you to keep checking our website, keep checking other areas, because there are still a significant number of those agreements yet to be signed with the UK government. So they are important. Certainly from a flower point of view, a number have already been signed or are close to being signed, but it is important that they are signed and agreed before the 1st of January. Otherwise, that trade defaults to the new UK global tariff, which in essence means a higher level of duty from what is likely to be nil or very low levels of duty. Remember, if we don't have some form of agreement in the coming days or weeks with the European Union, the UK global tariff will also apply, which, as earlier speakers have highlighted, that does bring a change of dynamics in terms of where duties is payable or not payable and the potential impact on those commercial supply chains. So I don't think I'm going to go into too much detail at this time. I think the early speakers have given you an overview. What I'm trying to do is just encourage you to reinforce many of those key points, but just reflect on what does Europe need to do as much as possible to trade as seamlessly as possible with the UK and be prepared. We all see lots of information about how prepared the UK businesses are and how prepared European businesses are. And frankly, that's even tougher, especially from a more modest business with the challenges of COVID we've had in recent months. But I would suggest that many businesses are still not fully understanding what is required and are not prepared. So if I can give you any encouragement to prepare, please do so, because the UK is moving to a new era, but it is moving to an era where it is very, very keen to trade with our European and worldwide partners to build future and stronger relationships for the future. So, Tim, I think that's probably all from me at this time, but I'm obviously happy to answer any questions as they may come up in a few minutes.
Nigel, thank you very much. That's a great overview, and it's good that you are able to come in at this point. So you're very knowledgeable on many of these areas, and yet can sum up the things where we have a few gaps. So thank you very much for that overview. I know you're playing a really important role in keeping the industry informed on this issue and lobbying on this issue, and informing consumers. I had my lunch yesterday and turned the radio on, and I heard you on the radio as well over here. So
apologies for that, Tim. I hope it didn't put you off your lunch.
No, it's okay. So now we're going to a panel, and going to invite the other speakers back. If you could all rejoin and click on the screen and your microphone and come back in. See if we get Augusto as well. Still there. If Augusto is there, maybe the team can. Here we go. Yes, so everyone is back. That's great. Thanks very much. Now, I'm going to ask some questions which have been put up by the audience, and also some others I have. Please, though, feel free to add in any other points or ask questions yourselves within the panel. Audience can still ask questions now on the chat, and I will try and keep track of them while they are there. And please ask them in English, which will help me certainly. So let's we started off with Eline, and Eline is there in the very nice World Horti Center facility in the Netherlands, and we want to just start with a couple of questions for Eline. And I was going to ask you what it is you plan to do with the outcome of all the analysis work that you have done, that you presented to us today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tim, that's a good question. Of course, the impact analysis, while doing it, it gave us a lot more insights, but it would be a little bit too late if we would have acted just now by knowing the consequences and just act now. So since the beginning of the Brexit, we followed very closely what are the announcing of the Brexit. We followed closely what are the developments. And of course, from our perspective, also like mentioned in the former presentation, and especially the presentation of Mr. Solano, we are also trying to mitigate the risk of business as usual, what we are facing today, compared to the situation I described in my presentation. So our lobby is focused on mitigating the risk, hopefully for input duties which are as low as possible, and also with as less trade barriers as possible. And in the Netherlands, we do the lobby not just by ourselves, but also together with the VGB, the trade association in the Netherlands, and also Mr. Solano mentioned already Union Fleur, which we're very closely working with together also on European level.
Thank you. And is there an expectation amongst the growers that you're going to keep the business that is there with the UK now, or are they anticipating that some of it will go? Are they looking at other market opportunities? What is the view?
I don't have any signs yet that they're that they're actually leaving the British market. Of course, what we noticed, and that's already have been kind of a development since the announcement of the Brexit, that we see some growers diversifying their assortment. So if they so far have been an assortment which was 100% suitable for the UK market, that you see now, especially for lilies and chrysanthemums, that they're also planting other varieties which are suitable for and interesting for other markets as well.
So they're covering themselves a bit on that area. Yeah. Has any other of the panelists noticed any changes in suppliers, the way they are viewing the UK market and maybe looking elsewhere? Any comment? Ian, do you have noticed anything on that?
No, we haven't really seen anything too much yet. I think there's almost an uncertain level at the moment of everybody sort of saying, well, let's hope there's business as usual at the moment, a little bit. So I think we'll see that probably act a little bit more when there's a bit more known entity what the marketplace will start to look like post January 1. Yeah.
We've just had a question come in regarding flowers from Turkey. So for our cut flowers from Turkey, the question, it says, for some of our UK customers have been delivered to Holland and the flowers were taken to the UK. As of January the 1st, our UK customer will re-export the flowers to the UK. Are there any extra customs cost for it? Well, I think Eline covered this area, and to say there was, in an event of a no deal, there's no expected tariffs for flowers that are from a third country that come through the Netherlands. Is that right, Eline?
Yeah, that's the case, at least when they are not imported in the EU at the moment. So if they are received in transport and exported again, then they are still considered as non-EU flowers, and then there's no import duty involved.
Yes, unless they are repackaged and then they become a new product. Yes.
Yeah, and value.
Yeah. However, I'm sure that the costs of notifying and declaring and the additional costs that are coming through that will still apply, as it does to any product from the EU. Yeah. Do you want to comment on that, Nigel?
No, I think you've summarised it, Tim. I think there are a number of options how you can, let's say, transit through Europe rather than clearing European customs. That maybe become a critical business mindset to minimise those potential extra costs. But I don't think businesses should ignore the additional administration, time, effort, and bureaucracy of completing the things that will now be necessary to manage business in the future.
So the kind of percentages of up to even 20% of extra costs that Eline presented seem about right to you, would you say, Nigel?
I would walk with some positivity and hope that the numbers are nowhere near as high as that, but I fully accept the well thought through logic of the earlier presentation. I think what will make a great difference to that worst case 19% is that if there is some form of agreement where there is no tariff between the EU and the UK, and perhaps our politicians may just surprise me as well, and that sterling has a rise rather than the fall, which I think was the prediction, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. So, Stefan, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I can agree with what Nigel just said. We think it's more likely that if there is a deal, that we are going to see a slight appreciation of sterling, and that could even go a little bit further if this deal is some sort of prelude to towards a UK-US trade deal, which of course is also in the works in the background, but seems very unlikely at this stage yet.
Thank you. Yes, I didn't imagine we'd be talking about a UK-US deal in this call, but this is interesting dimension, of course. All of these things have an impact, and I think something coming out very clearly from your presentation, Stefan, is the economic conditions in the UK and how that will affect consumer spend, and the view of products like flowers and how that will be impacted when GDP is down and individual household spending is down. So I think how are you advising, Stefan, your customers in light of your predictions?
Well, if I look at from a broader strategy, the thing is that the world is changing quite rapidly from a very business-friendly, trade-friendly, liberal world in which the relationships between countries are being arranged and settled on a multilateral basis. And this ultimately led to the rise of the WTO, for instance, to a world that is much more polarized and much more based on bilateral relationships. It's very zero-sum, or a quid pro quo, actually. So that means that these events that we are seeing, such as Brexit, the dismantling of the WTO, or the US-China trade war, are not isolated events. And so instead, it is our view that we can see more of these types of events in the upcoming years. And this will complicate life for businesses who are active in foreign markets. So that's why we advise clients to either diversify their own client base in terms of geography, and that makes them, of course, less exposed to these kind of these kind of event risks. Or we could advise them to simplify or to shorten their own supply chains and their routes into the markets that they are selling into, and see whether it is possible to shift from just-in-time strategies to more of a just-in-case strategy. However, I understand that that is relatively easier to achieve for manufacturers who have very lengthy supply chains than it is for businesses who are active in the flower market with these perishable goods. But I still think that growers could make good use of these insights as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Ian, I wonder how Flamingo will be looking to change its business. What sort of business changes are you considering in light of the implications of Brexit?
Well, our first one really is actually we are rerouting an awful lot of our aircraft, obviously, into the UK to start off with. So that's a fairly fundamental change that means that our air freight bridge is more concentrated around the UK delivery. We are changing a consolidation approach, and I think that we heard an awful lot about collaboration over COVID. I think collaboration is going to be a very big word, I think, for January 1 as well, where we'll need to get growers to collaborate to deliver to one place in Holland to get a consolidated phytosanitary position certainly for plants to start off with, and how we then learn that for flowers. In answer to one of the colleague questions on the chat there from Turkey, obviously we try and encourage you as much as possible now to get used to doing direct phytosanitary requirements straight through Europe into UK if possible. And obviously, well, as from January 1, another question that came in on the chat, and obviously high-risk plants, they will be being inspected mainly for Xylella, I understand, and Bemisia from January 1 as the major focus products. They will be ones that come under the risk. But we are definitely looking to change some of our models for direct supply into Europe and direct supply to UK. It's very, very fundamental that bringing products from multi-countries will have some phytosanitary challenges to get them all to come together at the same time.
And do you think the ports of entry are ready? Do you think there is the capacity there to cope with the extra checks which will be required for product coming directly in?
I think they're building, Nigel maybe answer this better than me, I think they're building capacity quite quickly. I think they've certainly built capacity in inspectors quite quickly over the past few months. I think we're all trying to maybe second guess which port's going to be the busiest. Obviously Dover would be number one on the list, but everybody's sort of now saying, well, if everybody moves to another port, then we could end up thinking that actually Dover could become quite quiet because everybody moves to a different place. So we are watching that obviously very closely to see how that works. But I think border control posts, when they come into play, will be the next real sort of critical factor of how we actually move that. We've heard there's going to be one in Spalding, which obviously is the centre of the fresh produce hub, which will be really useful, I think, to move that forward. So, I'm sure Nigel and his team have been working quite closely with the government as well to make sure that we do have adequate actions in place and adequate inspectors in place to be able to cope with this. And I think they're building quite quickly.
Nigel, do you want to comment on that, on the capacity of the UK for coping with these extra checks?
Thanks, Tim. Look, clearly accept that's a major concern from an industry perspective, but you will be aware that I mentioned the date of the 1st of July a little while ago. That's a key date where a number of new government facilities should come online. And Ian just mentioned there are a number of commercial facilities being developed, the one in Spalding, for example, and I fully envisage there'll be others around the country as well. But in the short term, from the 1st of January, for plants, you will be allowed your goods can transit to what is called a place of destination. So it could be your UK facility or your customer's UK facility for those products, but that will only be available for plants because it's only applicable to plants for that period of time and would not be an option as we speak from the 1st of July onwards. Although we are encouraging the UK government to perhaps take a more flexible approach from the 1st of July onwards. But as Ian's already mentioned, there have been a considerable number of new inspectors appointed. So they are the people are there. It's a question of ensuring the facilities are there. But the UK government has committed to do its utmost to allow those inspections to be away from ports, particularly ro-ro ports, to ensure there aren't those logistical hold-ups that people are frankly dreading.
Yeah, there certainly is a big concern for products like flowers. And I wonder, are the issues that you see for flowers any different to what you see for the rest of fresh produce that you are handling within your organization as well? Nigel, did you hear that? You're on mute, I think, Nigel.
Sorry, Tim. The dynamics of flowers, are more important because of their sheer level of perishability. But there are many other fruit and vegetable items that are just as perishable that we purchase from Europe. There's a good reason why we buy many of these products from Europe, and it is about those highly efficient, just-in-time processes that we are all very keen to maintain as much as possible to ensure that business efficiency. But we are constantly reinforcing to government that these processes need to adopt and relate to the shelf life of the products that we're talking about, because as an industry, we will continue to be committed to providing fantastic, high-quality products at the most attractive prices possible, and we need government support to allow that to happen.
Okay. Thank you. There was a question asking about just if you could explain a little more on what things can be deferred in terms of some of the regulatory requirements from the 1st of January to July.
Okay. I think we need to be very clear on this. When I mentioned about deferment, the only aspect that you can defer from the 1st of July, let me start again. The only aspect that you can defer from the 1st of January would be your customs processes and potential declarations and duty payments. But I would take significant advice before you choose to take that option. Doesn't mean to say you'll never pay those fees. If fees are applicable, at some point you will be required to provide that information, certainly no later than the 1st of July. So it's only for that customs process. It's that alone. I think I saw a chat about, when will inspections take place? Be very clear, the 1st of January is what is called high priority plants. In essence, it's plants with roots. There are some other items included, such as potatoes, but cut flowers and other fruit and vegetables are not involved until documentary systems on the 1st of April and potential physical inspections on the 1st of July. So it is important that you understand the different phase process for the range of products that you are looking to market in the UK.
Yeah, okay, thank you. There's a question, Nigel, I'm going to stick with you for this one. Does the 8% duty tariff apply for trade between Northern Ireland and the UK?
I love these easy questions. In reality, yes. The trading from Great Britain to Northern Ireland is going to be, from a bureaucracy point of view, a whole lot more complex than it's ever been before. So from a phytosanitary point of view, if the goods are being exported from GB to Northern Ireland, you will have to go through that formal export process of having a phytosanitary certificate and much more. In terms of duty and VAT and other things, in essence, the broad principle is that there will be a border in the Irish Sea. But I have to say, my advice I've just given is the broad principles of where we currently stand, but the UK government still got an awful lot of information to provide, so that is absolutely clear the process they will adopt.
Okay, thank you. Ian, I wonder, have you felt that retailers are making any changing plans or making different contingency plans as a result of Brexit coming up, or are they just leaving it all to you to sort out?
I think there's the word contingency is overused in a number of different areas, but certainly there's a lot of plans afoot at the moment to make sure there's additional activity and additional stock going into the system to manage what we're anticipating to be quite a transport challenge and a movement challenge. I think the big one that they are all aware, and they're very much kept in the brief and very much in the loop, and actually what's happening within the marketplace at the moment, and actually what the potential impact will be from that from the 1st of January. We certainly are seeing at the moment, we are seeing that they basically haven't changed any fundamental plans, but I can see as we move into some of the higher peaks, for instance, into Valentine's and Mother's Day, then those areas, if there are still no deals and there's tariff issues, and also as well if there's phytosanitary challenges, then there will be some opportunity to look at other supply channels. But at the moment, they are silently hoping for a deal, I think, in some areas, but we're well aware that phytosanitary issues are going to be the biggest challenge for them going forward, and also going into Northern Ireland and Ireland for that retail climate is going to be quite the biggest challenge, actually.
And in terms of the extra costs, which Eline was talking about, Ian, are the retailers thinking that they're going to be, the price of flowers to the consumer is going to be going up, or are they looking to the supply chain to deal with that differently?
I think the usual answer to that question is the supply chain will be trying to work a way to mitigate the cost or the added cost into that position. I think if we get to the Eline's 20% number, that will have a significant impact on actually that sort of on cost situation, and that will be the biggest one. There will be obviously mitigation of numbers of stems in bouquets, for example. So rather than selling 12, you'll sell 10. Those sorts of things will be the first offer, but obviously that hits volume, and that will obviously then hit the continental plan, because obviously everybody's already grown this stuff. A lot of this stuff's obviously in the ground, so there will be some pressure, I'm sure, with volume versus value going into January, without a shadow of a doubt.
And the UK is not a significant grower of cut flowers, but do you feel that this will increase as a result of these changes?
I think we've already seen a move by retail to look at UK or closer to home product where it's possible, as much as possible. I think seasonal flowers took quite a big boom this year. Even though we were going through a lockdown situation, the seasonal flower market was pretty strong. I think it will come back to a campaign I've talked to Nigel about before, called Britain in Bloom. There will be some challenges there, I'm sure, this year to get something off from the market. We got COVID-19 this year, I think, before we got into that sort of challenge. But there will definitely be a move, I think, to see a higher potential opportunity for UK growers where possible to take a larger share of the market for the UK consumer. That is going to be something that we will see, whether it be the tulip market or some of that. There will be definitely an opportunity there. Like everything, wherever there's a change in business, normal ways of working, there's an opportunity for others to capitalize on that.
And do you expect more packers more packing operations to be set up within the UK to avoid this issue of the tariff having to come through from the EU, for example?
I don't think so. I don't think the packing side of it will be coming through very much. I think there is obviously the plants one will be a challenge. We don't want to sort of go into too much plants today, but the plants one will be a challenge because an awful lot of the plant market is supplied directly from Holland. So that is a packing challenge, and actually how that passporting works will go forward will actually impact, I think, on what can be done in the UK. As a cut flower market, I think that one's going to still be, there's still a lot of that's already done in the UK. So there'll be a potential for other areas already where there's capacity in some places to do more. And you may see where you've got seasonal growers, that basically UK seasonal growers that could actually expand their packing operations to do more product, all year round, rather than just having a seasonal business or a seasonal packing operation. But that again will be very much labour dependent. I think that will be the biggest one that will drive the challenges, I think, in that market in terms of labour profiling.
Yeah. I'm wondering if Augusto is still with us. Maybe I think he was still there. Just put your camera on if you are not, or you can hear. Here you are. Yes.
Do you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we hear you.
There's something wrong with the video or something. I have it on, but there's like a blackout there or something. But I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, we can hear you. I just wondering, Augusto, your growers have been pioneering some transport of flowers by sea. And I wondered if this may be something you will pursue more from Colombia as a result of Brexit.
Oh, yes, I think so. Because as I told you, air transportation is limited right now. It's very difficult. And I think it will. As a matter of fact, I think our main destination with sea transportation is the UK, is Tesco. So we have the knowledge is the whole thing is working with our authorities here and with the ports. That's the possibility we have, certainly. I think that's the kind of thing that may happen.
Okay, good, thank you. Well, I'm just going to close off by asking Nigel what is his main asks. What you're talking to government about these things. So one of the reasons we asked you to talk about this topic is we feel we've got to probably get a clearer response than if we just asked government to talk about it. So I think, what are you asking government now to get to help this industry as we come towards January the 1st?
I think in one word, Tim, it'd be very simple: clarity. Tell me what you want, when you want it, and how do you want it. Whilst we've been able to provide a considerable number of answers today and to FPC members, there are still key aspects which remain unknown. And it's, we are now days away from the 1st of January. So from a plant sector, some of those elements and some of that information is essential. Without being complacent, I think it's positive that we've been able to negotiate with the UK government a phased approach, both for cut flowers and for fruit and vegetables. But don't waste the first few months of next year thinking tomorrow will do. It's important we understand the issues and appreciate as we move forward. Please share your issues with FPC. It's important that we have a full understanding of the whole supply chain so we can do our utmost to influence the most pragmatic and commercially effective solutions that we're able to do with the new regulations the UK government is beginning to enforce.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think I've picked up most of the questions from the audience. If there are any that we've missed, we will have a look through them and we will try to send them on to you by email. Also, this webinar will be available to watch again. We recorded it, so we will let you have the link for that by email. I want to just take this opportunity to really thank all of our speakers and those that have helped us today in understanding what we're facing in the coming weeks and into next year and beyond with Brexit, the short term and the long term, and we've been thinking a little bit more strategically as well about the industry, as well as the immediate operational challenges which are faced. And of course, there are still many questions that we have. We don't know about the phytosanitary certification and how it will come in. We don't know about many things, but whether there's a deal or not. But it's good to see we are supported by organizations who are really investigating this and trying to support our industry as we tackle these problems together on both sides of the channel. So I would really like to thank all of you very much for giving up your time and for supporting this event. I'd like to thank the World Horti Center as well for their support in running this webinar and providing the technical support to everybody. This has been really much appreciated. I hope that we will be able to run events like this together for you again. And where we get more news, we will pass it on. Please subscribe to Floriculture International magazine, where we will also seek to keep you updated on the topics there. It doesn't cost anything, so please do it, and you'll find a lot of useful information for your business in there. So I am now going to refer back to Joop, back at the World Horti Center, and I pass back over to him. And thank again all the speakers, and thank you to all the audience who've joined us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again to all the speakers. I will avoid naming everyone because of time, but thanks again, sharing your insights. Also the guests, thanks for attending. One remaining thing, Tim just made a comment about Floriculture International, very important media partner. We look forward to strengthening the collaboration between World Horti Center, AIPH, and Floriculture International, and keep bringing you important knowledge and events like this. So if you have an interest in those, please check worldhortisociety.nl or check the site worldhorticenter.nl, and you'll find the society right there. That's our community of businesses, research and government organizations collaborating and sharing their latest practices and knowledge. Thank you also to the Dutch Ministry of Agriculture. We forgot to mention